My neighbor poisoned my 50-year-old oak tree. So I took his house. The smell of chlorine usually meant summer, barbecues, and the distant sound of kids splashing in a pool, but this morning, it smelled like a crime scene. I stood in my backyard, coffee mug in hand, staring at the base of the massive oak tree that had anchored the corner of my property since before I was born. Its leaves, usually a vibrant, deep green canopy that shaded half my lawn, were curling at the edges, turning a sickly, brittle yellow. It was mid-July. The tree should have been thriving. Instead, it looked like it was dying of thirst in the middle of a rainstorm. I knelt down, touching the soil near the massive, gnarly roots that snaked out of the ground like the veins of the earth. The dirt was damp, but something was wrong. It didn't smell like earth. It smelled sharp. Chemical. Like the inside of a janitor's closet. I looked over the fence. My neighbor, Gary, was out by his pool, skimming leaves off the surface with a net. He was whistling. "Morning, Gary," I called out, my voice tight. Gary stopped whistling. He looked up, his eyes narrowing behind his sunglasses. "Morning, Stefan. Tree looking a little rough, huh?" "Yeah," I said, standing up. "It is. Happened pretty fast." "Shame." Gary shrugged, tossing a handful of wet leaves into the bushes. "Those big trees, they get old. Disease gets them. Probably beetles or something. Maybe it's time to take it down. Save you the trouble when it falls on your house." "It's not beetles, Gary," I said. "Well, whatever it is." He turned back to his pool. "At least I won't have to clean these damn leaves out of my filter much longer." I stared at his back. The casual cruelty, the smug satisfaction. He had been complaining about the leaves for 3 years. He had sent me letters. He had threatened to sue me for nuisance debris. And now, suddenly, my tree was dying, and he was whistling. I walked back inside. I didn't call an arborist immediately. I called Amazon. I ordered a trail camera. The kind hunters used to track deer. Motion activated. Night vision. 4K resolution. I strapped it to the back of my shed 2 days later, aiming it directly at the fence line where the oak's roots crossed near Gary's property. I covered it with some ivy so it blended in. Then I waited. The tree got worse. Branches started dropping. The yellow spread like a virus. It hurt to look at. That tree was a landmark. My kids had built a fort in it. On Saturday morning, I pulled the SD card. I sat at my computer, plugging it in with hands that were trembling slightly. I didn't want to find what I knew I was going to find. I scanned through the files. A raccoon. A stray cat. The wind blowing a branch. And then, a timestamp, 3:14 a.m. Thursday. The video loaded. Grainy, black and white night vision footage showed a figure climbing over the low part of the fence. He was wearing a hoodie, but I knew the walk. I knew the paunch. It was Gary. He was carrying a cordless drill in one hand and a white plastic jug in the other. He walked up to the base of the oak tree. He knelt down. I watched, horrified, as he pressed the drill into the thickest root, the one that fed the main trunk. Whir. I couldn't hear it, but I could see the wood chips fly. He drilled a hole. Then another. Then a third. He put the drill down. He uncapped the jug. He poured a clear liquid directly into the holes. He waited for it to soak in. Then he poured more. He stood up, screwed the cap back on, patted the tree like he was saying goodbye to an old friend he had just murdered, and climbed back over the fence. I paused the video on the jug. It was blurry, but the shape was distinctive. Industrial strength herbicide. Or maybe bleach. Something designed to kill. I sat back in my chair. The rage that filled me wasn't hot. It was cold. It was calculating. He had poisoned my property. He had trespassed. He had vandalized a living thing that was older than both of us. "Okay, Gary," I whispered. "You want the tree gone? Let's talk about what that's going to cost you." I didn't storm over to his house. I didn't scream over the fence. Confronting him now would just give him a chance to destroy evidence, to hide the jug, to lawyer up before I was ready. I needed to build a fortress of evidence around him so tight he couldn't breathe. I picked up the phone. I called the police. "I'd like to report a trespass and criminal damage to property," I told the dispatcher. "I have video evidence." An officer came out an hour later. Officer Miller. He watched the video on my laptop. He whistled low. "That's bold," Miller said. "And malicious. You know who it is. My neighbor, Gary, last name." "I'll go talk to him," Miller said, hitching up his belt. "But don't expect him to confess. And honestly, tree disputes, they usually end up in civil court. But I'll file the report for criminal mischief. It gets the ball rolling." I watched from the window as Miller knocked on Gary's door. Gary answered. I saw him wave his arms. I saw him point at my house. I saw him shake his head. Miller came back. "He denies it. Says it wasn't him. Says the video is too dark to identify anyone." "It's him," I said. "I know his walk." "I believe you," Miller said. "But without a face shot, it's tough. Keep the video. You're going to need it for the lawsuit." "Lawsuit?" "Yes." That was the path. I called a certified arborist. Not just a tree trimmer. A forensic arborist. A guy who testifies in court. His name was Dr. Green. He showed up the next day with a soil testing kit and a grim expression. He examined the tree. He saw the drill holes immediately. He took samples of the wood. He took samples of the soil. "It's herbicide," Green said, sniffing a core sample. "High concentration. Likely glyphosate or something stronger. Tricloper maybe. He injected it directly into the cambium layer. It's circulating through the entire vascular system of the tree right now. Can we save it?" I asked, looking at the yellowing leaves. "Maybe," Green said. "It depends on the dose. We can try flushing the soil. We can do nutrient injections to boost its immune system. But it's going to be expensive. And it's going to take years to know if it survives. Do whatever it takes," I said. "Send me the bill." "No." Green pulled out a clipboard. "Let's talk about value. Because if this tree dies, you aren't just losing shade. You're losing an asset." He started measuring the trunk diameter. He measured the canopy spread. He took photos. "This is a mature white oak," Green said. "Quercus alba. 50 years old minimum. In perfect health before this event. In this neighborhood, with these property values? The replacement cost, meaning the cost to buy a tree of this size, transport it, and plant it, is astronomical." "How much?" Green did some calculations. "Conservative estimate? $40,000. $40,000? I choked. "Plus remediation," Green added. "You have to remove the contaminated soil. You have to remove the dead stump. That's another 5 to 10 grand. I looked at Gary's house. I looked at his pool. "Write it up," I said. "Write it all up." But then Green stopped. He was kneeling near the fence line, taking soil samples on the edge of the property. "Wait a minute," Green said. He looked over the fence at Gary's pool equipment pad. It was concrete, surrounded by gravel. "What is it?" "The slope," Green pointed. "Your yard slopes slightly toward his. It's subtle, but it's there." So, Green smiled, a dark, professional smile. "When he poured that poison into the ground, gravity took over. The plume didn't just stay in the roots. It migrated. It leached." He pointed to a patch of brown, dead grass on Gary's side of the fence, right next to his expensive pool pump. "He poisoned his own land," Green said. "And if that chemical got into the groundwater near his pool, that's an environmental hazard. The EPA takes a very dim view of unlicensed chemical dumping in residential zones." I went back inside and dug through my emails. I knew I had it. I never delete anything. I searched. Gary. There it was. Dated October 12th of last year. Subject: the damn tree. From Gary Miller. Stefan, I am writing this formally to request you remove the oak tree on the property line. The leaves are clogging my skimmer every day. It is a nuisance. If you don't take it down, I will be forced to take measures to protect my property value. Forced to take measures. He had written his own confession. He had established premeditation. He had established intent. I printed it. I printed the arborist's report. I saved the video to 3 different hard drives. I called a lawyer. A specialist in tree law. Yes, that's a thing. And they are sharks. Treble damages. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, said over the phone after I sent him the file. That's the magic phrase. In our state, if someone intentionally damages or destroys timber on another person's land, they are liable for 3 times the value of the timber. It's a punitive measure to stop logging theft, but it applies here perfectly. 3 times? I asked, doing the math. 40,000 times 3? $120,000. Henderson confirmed. Plus legal fees. Plus the cost of the arborist. Plus the soil remediation. He doesn't have that kind of money, I said. He works in sales. He drives a leased BMW. He owns a house, Henderson said. A house with equity. We'll get it. We filed the suit the next week. Stefan, last name, versus Gary Miller. Civil tort, trespass, vandalism, malicious destruction of property. Damages sought, $150,000. I watched from my window when the process server arrived. It was a Saturday morning. Gary was washing his car. The server walked up the driveway. He handed Gary the thick envelope. Gary took it, confused. He opened it. I saw his knees buckle. He actually had to lean against the car to stay upright. He read the first page. He looked at my house. He looked at the tree. He threw the papers on the ground and stomped into his house. 10 minutes later, he was pounding on my door. "Open up!" he screamed. "You psycho! Open the door!" I opened it. I stood there, calm, holding my coffee. "Morning, Gary," I said. $150,000? He shrieked, waving the papers in my face. "Are you insane? For a tree? It's wood. It grows back. It takes 50 years to grow back, Gary," I said. "And you killed it." "I didn't kill it," he lied, his face purple. "It was sick. I told you it was sick." "I have you on video, Gary," I said softly. "I have you drilling the holes. I have you pouring the poison. I have the email where you threatened to take measures. I have the arborist's report proving it was chemical poisoning." Gary froze. "Video? 4K resolution." I smiled. "Nice hoodie, by the way." "You can't prove it was me," he whispered, but the conviction was gone. "The judge will decide that," I said. "Now get off my porch. Unless you want me to add harassment to the list." He left. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. The legal process was slow, but brutal. Gary's lawyer tried to settle. He offered $5,000. "Tell him to add 2 zeros," I told Henderson. They tried to argue the value of the tree. They brought in their own expert, who said the tree was worth maybe $2,000 as lumber. Henderson destroyed him on cross-examination. He brought up the replacement value statute. The law doesn't care what the wood is worth. It cares what it costs to put the tree back the way it was. And you can't buy a 50-year-old oak at Home Depot. Then came the environmental twist. I had reported the chemical spill to the state EPA. I sent them Green's soil report showing the contamination on Gary's side of the fence. They sent an inspector. They found glyphosate and trichlopyr levels that were off the charts. They found that the poison had leached into the soil around his pool, potentially contaminating the drainage system that fed into the city storm drain. They fined him $10,000 for improper disposal of hazardous materials. And they ordered him to pay for professional soil remediation on his property too. Gary was bleeding money. We went to mediation. Gary sat across the table, looking pale and defeated. He had refinanced his house 6 months ago to pay for the pool. He had no equity left to borrow against. He was liquidity poor. "My client is willing to offer $50,000, his lawyer said. "That's everything he has in savings. If you push for more, he declares bankruptcy, and you get nothing." I looked at Gary. I thought about the tree. I thought about him whistling while it died. "I don't want his savings," I said. "I want a judgment." We went to trial. The jury watched the video. They saw the email. They saw the photos of the dying tree. It took them 2 hours to deliberate. Verdict: in favor of the plaintiff. Damages: $40,000 for the tree. Tripled to $120,000 for malice. Plus $15,000 in legal fees and remediation costs. Total judgment: $135,000. Gary cried in the courtroom. He couldn't pay. Obviously. So we placed a lien on his house. A judgment lien. It meant he couldn't sell, refinance, or transfer the property without paying me first. And the judgment collected interest. 10% a year. His wages were garnished. 25% of his paycheck, every 2 weeks, deposited directly into my account. But the best part, the absolute sweetest part? The tree didn't die. Dr. Green's treatments worked. We flushed the soil. We injected nutrients. We pruned the dead branches. It took a year, but the yellow faded. The leaves turned green again. The tree fought back. It was scarred, it had some dead limbs, but it was alive. I used the first $20,000 of the garnishment payments to build a beautiful stone patio underneath it. I bought a nice hammock. I spend my weekends there now. I lie in the shade of the tree that Gary bought me. Sometimes I see Gary in his backyard. He doesn't whistle anymore. He doesn't look at the tree. He keeps his head down. His pool is full of leaves. He hasn't cleaned it in weeks. The pump broke, and he can't afford to fix it because I'm taking a quarter of his paycheck. The water is green. "Looks like you have an algae problem, Gary," I called out last Saturday. He didn't answer. He just walked inside and closed the door. I took a sip of my iced tea. The tree rustled in the wind above me, alive and expensive. Some people say I should have settled. Some people say I ruined a man's life over a plant. But a tree isn't just a plant. It's time. It's history. And you can't kill history without paying the price. So tell me, am I the monster for bankrupting my neighbor and garnishing his wages for a decade, or did he just plant the seeds of his own destruction?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.